My name is Nick Gates, and I'm going to talk about multiple intelligences in the classroom and why you should be more willing to use multiple intelligences every day for the benefit for your students and the benefit just for yourself in the classroom and how your classroom operates. So let's just begin here with the 8 multiple intelligences. Those 8 multiple intelligences are logical, mathematical, verbal, linguistic, visual, spatial, musical, rhythmic, interpersonal, naturalist, bodily, kinesthetic, and intrapersonal. Now, as I go along here, I'm going to go through each of these 8 intelligences, and as I go through, I'm going to share one quick method that they can be used for, and in a class that you probably wouldn't think about using these intelligences in your classroom for. Now, one thing to understand, you don't have to use all 8 of these intelligences all the time. Understand some lessons will be easier to incorporate different intelligences to help you and your students. And understand, using multiple intelligences doesn't have to be a pain. It should naturally fit into what you want to do. And one thing that teachers that have used multiple intelligences will tell you that it saves time. I want to start right now to say multiple intelligences can save time in the classroom because you're going to spend less time having to review concepts because you're spending more time working on these concepts in a different way. So that's one thing I want to get across before we get going here. So let's just get started with logical mathematical. Logical mathematical has a lot to do with problem solving, reasoning, thinking. You see graphic organizers on there. Graphic organizers are a great way in almost any classroom for teachers to display content in a different method. But the idea I wanted to share here for logical mathematical was the predicting what is next in the story. What a great way to get students involved in a book. A lot of times students kind of feel like, oh, this book's just dragging on and on. Why not let them try to write the next chapter or the next 5 to 10 pages? Now hopefully they don't cheat, but give them a chance to make that prediction on what is going to happen next. That makes them use that other side of their brain, that makes them think and think creatively, and it's something fun and different. That's one thing you're going to learn with these multiple intelligences. They are fun and different for you to use in the classroom and helps make the experience in the classroom much, much different. So moving on, we're going to go on to verbal linguistic. Verbal linguistic learning, word usage, language usage. This is the #1 way that we teach kids in the classroom. Overall, we've had the opportunity, looking at education and what teachers do. This is the #1 way that teachers try to teach. And it makes sense because it does in some ways hit multiple senses. And in another way, it's something that's the way we've all learned so many different things. And the one method I really want to talk about here is in math. I love the idea. I think it would have been a lot of fun for me as a student if I would have had the chance to create my own story problems. Think about that. That I would be using the main concepts of what we're ever learning about in math. Addition, subtraction, abstract algebra, geometry, whatever it may be. I'm having to put the concepts incorrectly while creating a story. Now, for some students, that's going to be a great change of pace compared to what they were doing before. And so, using this verbal linguistic is something that we almost all do anyway in our classrooms. Just thinking of a different way to do it. I love the PE example as well with the sportscaster. That's just a great example to get kids interested in PE. So moving on now to visual spatial. This is your sight. You're creating an image, seeing an image, repeating an image, or taking something you hear or read and then creating an image for it. One of the main ones I really like for this one is the creation of a collage of an animal. What's a better way to learn about an animal and its environment and its habits than creating a collage of an elephant or of a penguin or of a deer, or whatever it may be, and then using other pictures for students to basically pick out, okay, where does a deer live? What does it eat? What does it need to survive? How little are they young? I mean, that's such a cool way to display, and sometimes a very complex idea. And this is a very, very popular way that teachers already teach. So I think that's something a lot of teachers use. But visual spatial learning still going on a lot anyway. One that is not used a lot is musical rhythmic. Now, singing, sounds, musical performance, this is one that you think is going to take a lot of time. But this is one that really activates creativity for students. And let them, take the curriculum that you're teaching and let them run with it. Let them create a song or a poem or something that has to basically flow. And the example I want to use here is actually one from social studies. I love the idea of playing music from the past or playing cultural music from the past. You can go back and find out what the Romans, what kind of music they had. It's not very difficult. And just playing a little bit of that can give students a little bit of sense of the time period, give them a little bit of sense of the culture, and then you can use that music to then compare different cultures. What a great tool that we can use as teachers to help students understand, sometimes complex cultures. And as a social studies teacher, I think that's just a great idea. I also really like the creation of sounds for math problems, particularly with young kids, giving a sound like a whistle or whatever it may be for addition, subtraction. What a great way to help them remember what you're learning about. Next, interpersonal. This one I think is a really big one. As teachers and as schools, I think we can all attest to the fact that interpersonal skills as teachers, we have to work with each other. And these students, whenever they get out into the real world, whatever it may be, after college or after high school or anything that they do, even if they have a summer job, you have to have some interpersonal skills. And those interpersonal skills are not learned just by being around friends or being around people. If you put them in different situations, they learn a lot about themselves and different interpersonal skills. And the one I really want to focus on here is actually in math. I really like the idea that math, using a teach one, do one math strategy. Basically have one person be the teacher for a while, have the other person be a student. What a great way to learn math, and this is a great opportunity for you to put the struggling student with the excelling student, for them to learn from each other. I think that's a really big skill in teaching students to work with different people. Remember, we're not just teaching students how to be students, we're teaching them how to be people, and learning interpersonal skills, very, very important in doing that. The next one we're going to go to is the naturals. Now, this is the newest of the intelligences. This naturals approach is basically the natural world around us and how we experience that natural world around us. And this is not just seeing, this is not just hearing, this is actually even using all of our senses. And the one I really, really like here is actually, again, in social studies, where I really like the idea of food days. Again, I talked about before, I talked about the music. This, with the food, again, gives a different aspect of the culture, and it really engages kids. I think if you can see that now with all the things that we talked about, we're only through 6 of these intelligences. This is engaging curriculum. This is presenting curriculum in a different way, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Some of the strategies you're seeing here, they don't take a lot of time to go through. They just provide a different angle for you to present curriculum to students, and it will basically save you time in reviewing. And so that's the naturalist approach. Bodily kinesthetic. This is one I really like personally. Physical movement. Active. They say, well, that kid can't sit in his seat. Well, you want to get kids out of their seats then. There's nothing wrong with reenacting something. There's nothing wrong with creating gestures. There's nothing wrong with students taking some piece of material and then acting it out. The one I really like here is have students act out part of a book to help them remember. People always complain all the time, oh, Romeo and Juliet, that book is just a pain. Well, it's not a pain. Have the students act it out. Have the students display their talents in a different way. And I think they'll gain a better appreciation of the book, and at the same time, they'll gain a better understanding. Along with that understanding, they'll be engaged in what they are doing in that story, and it will encourage them to maybe dig a little bit deeper into that. And then the last one, interpersonal. This is the one of reflection. Going back and thinking, okay, how do I best learn? That's the key thing I really like with interpersonal. How do I best learn? That's something that kids really do not understand very well. And one way that I think we could really do this is in English. Again, I'm going to use the English example here. Is have students write an autobiography about themselves. Have them write this autobiography and a future autobiography about what they're going to do, how they're going to be as they get older. I think that's just a cool idea to help them understand, self-awareness and how best do they learn. What do they want to do? Gaining an understanding of the big picture for themselves. All right. So so far we've talked about what these 8 intelligences are and why or why and what you can do with them in your classroom. But let's just look at the overall aspect. We're an APL school, and as an APL school, we talk about bell ringers. Why not have your bell ringer every day be something that's different, engaging, open up a different intelligence for a student, open up a different aspect of understanding the curriculum. In social studies, why not open the day with, if I'm doing the 1960s, with a Beatles song? Why not in the early 1900s, ragtime, or the 1920s, different music? Doing that once per unit. I'm not doing that every day. Remember, you don't have to use all of these every day. It's just a different way of thinking about what you're learning about. And you can do it in every set of curriculum, which is really, really cool. And it provides that opportunity for us as teachers to engage students differently. That's, the main thing looking and studying these intelligences, it's about engagement. If students are engaged, they are more willing to learn, and no matter what it is. If you're sitting there doing the same thing over and over and over and over, these students today do not want the same thing over and over, just like you and I don't want to eat the same thing every day. We want something different. We want to work it differently. We want to look at it differently. And this is not going to completely change how you teach. That's the one thing, too, I want to emphasize. You're not going to change how you teach. You're just going to adjust. The learning, in some ways, is going to go away from you, and it's going to go on the students to try different things, to explore different aspects of a culture, to explore different aspects of a book. And I think that's going to lead to improved learning. It's going to get to a different environment. As a teacher, we look sometimes for ways to get to these struggling kids. These multiple intelligences provide us a way to get to that struggling student in a different aspect, instead of trying to create all these different IEPs and all these different things that we do to try to help these students. Why not try to present information to them in a different way? And if you do that, I think you're going to see an adjustment in the student. You're going to see the student's participation level go up in the classroom. You're going to see that student's confidence go up in and outside the classroom. It's going to create that interaction and build that relationship that helps you as a teacher be successful in your classroom. That's what multiple intelligences provides the opportunity for you to do. And it also, in the end, it's fun. If it's fun, students want to be there. They want to be in your room. They want to learn. And multiple intelligences gives you a chance to do that in a different way, and at the same time allows you to teach the same curriculum. And in most cases, it's going to save you time as a teacher, because you're not going to be reviewing as much. You're not going to have to go back and say, oh, we got to go over that again. No, you're not going to do that anymore, because you presented it the first time in so many different ways that the students understand it and they grasp it. Thank you for listening to my presentation.